Senior Officer Han rubbed his tired eyes and reached for his fifth cup of stimulant drink. The night shift at the Galactic Hegemony's 7th Fleet Monitoring Station was always boring. Nothing interesting ever happened here. The massive alien empire had ruled the stars for over 10,000 years. Every ship, from the smallest mining craft to the largest battleship, was logged, tracked, and controlled. Han's job was simple: watch the screens and report anything unusual. In 30 years of service, he had never reported anything truly unusual. Until today, a small red dot appeared at the edge of his screen. The computer couldn't identify it. Han frowned and tapped his screen, thinking it might be a glitch. The dot moved. Fast. "Commander Doe," Han called out, his voice sharper than he intended. "I have something strange here." Commander Doe walked over slowly. He was a tall, gray-skinned alien with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. Like most hegemony officials, he carried himself with total confidence. The Empire had not faced a real threat in thousands of years. "What is it, officer?" "Han?" Doe asked, not bothering to hide his boredom. Han pointed at his screen. "That ship's not logged," he said, "and it's gaining speed." Doe's upper eyes narrowed. "Run a system check. Must be a sensor error." "Already did, sir. It's real." Han tapped a few more controls, and the main view screen lit up with the image of a sleek silver vessel unlike any hegemony design. It had clean lines and what looked like unusually large engines for its size. "Magnify," ordered Doe, now fully alert. The image grew larger. On the side of the mystery ship were strange markings: Republic of Korea, Deep Space Vessel Sejong. "What language is that?" Doe demanded. "Check the database." Han's fingers flew across his control panel. "Nothing, sir. The computer can't match it to any known language in the Empire. This was impossible. The hegemony controlled all advanced species. Any civilization capable of building starships had been conquered or destroyed centuries ago. The few primitive worlds that remained were carefully watched, their development strictly limited. "It's heading toward the Zeta 9 military sector," Han said, tracking the vessel's path. "Speed is... That can't be right." "What is it?" "It's moving faster than our fastest ships, sir. At least twice as fast." Commander Doe's skin paled. "Activate alert protocols now." Alarms blared throughout the station. Officers who had been half asleep moments before rushed to their stations. The main screen showed the unknown ship accelerating even faster, now heading straight toward a defensive minefield that protected the entrance to the military sector. "It's going to hit the mines," someone said. But it didn't. The ship changed course with impossible precision, weaving between the deadly explosives as if they were nothing more than obstacles in a training course. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the ship vanished. "Where did it go?" Doe shouted. Han checked his instruments. "It's gone, sir. Either their stealth technology is beyond anything we have, or they have some kind of jump drive we've never seen before." The room fell silent. Jump drives were theoretical. The hegemony's best scientists had been working on the technology for centuries without success. Commander Doe took a deep breath. "Send all data to High Command. Market priority, Level 1. He turned to face the room of stunned officers. "No one speaks of this outside this room, understood?" 3 light years away, Captain Kim leaned back in her command chair and smiled. The Sejong had completed its mission perfectly. First contact, albeit brief, had been made. "Status report," she ordered. "Jump drive functioning at optimal levels," reported Chief Engineer Bay from his station. "The hegemony didn't even try to fire on us. I think we surprised them." Kim nodded. Surprise was exactly what they wanted. For 200 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. When the hegemony scout ship had briefly visited Earth in the early 21st century, it had left behind a damaged probe. That single piece of alien technology had changed everything. Earth's nations, realizing they weren't alone in the universe, had done something unprecedented. They had united. Secret research facilities were built. The best minds from around the world worked together to understand and improve upon the alien technology, and they had succeeded beyond all expectations. Communications. Play back what you intercepted. Kim ordered. A voice filled the bridge. It was the hegemony officers, their language translated by the ship's advanced computer systems. The humans listened as the aliens expressed disbelief at what they were seeing. "They have no idea who we are," Lieutenant Park said from the tactical station. His display showed the hegemony ships now scrambling in confusion. "Their response time is slow, very slow." "They've grown complacent," Kim replied. "After ruling, unopposed for thousands of years, they've forgotten what it's like to face an equal." She stood up and walked to the large view screen at the front of the bridge. It showed the stars of an unfamiliar sky, yet each one had been carefully studied by human astronomers. "Send the signal to the fleet," she ordered. "Operation First Light is a success. Phase 2 begins now." On the hegemony capital world of Zenthar Prime, the High Council was in chaos. "Impossible!" shouted Council Elder Vex, slamming his three-fingered hand on the table. "No new spacefaring species could develop without our knowledge." Security Director Gal stood calmly before the 12-member council. He was younger than most of the council members, having risen through the ranks quickly due to his sharp mind. "The evidence is clear," Gal said. "The unidentified ship displayed technology we don't possess. Our sensors detected no known energy signature, and this was not an isolated incident." He waved his hand, and the chamber's holographic display showed a map of the Empire. Red dots appeared at various points throughout. In the past 6 hours, similar vessels have been detected in 27 different sectors. They appear, scan our facilities, and disappear before we can respond. The council members murmured among themselves. This was unprecedented. "What are they doing?" asked Military Commander Zoll. "Are they preparing for an attack?" "Unknown," Gal replied. "But what concerns me is that they seem to know exactly where our most important military and communication facilities are located. They're gathering intelligence with remarkable precision," Vex scoffed. "One primitive species cannot threaten the hegemony. We have conquered thousands of worlds. Our fleets number in the millions." Gal's expression remained serious. "With respect, Elder, this species doesn't appear to be primitive at all. Their technology may surpass our own." In the back of the council chamber, Junior Archivist Tez listened with growing alarm. After the meeting, he hurried down to the deep archives beneath the capital city. Something about this situation seemed familiar, like a story he had read in the old records. For hours, he searched through files that hadn't been accessed in centuries. Finally, he found it, a scout report from nearly 300 years ago. The report described a blue-green planet inhabited by a species called humans. The scout ship had recommended placing monitoring satellites around the planet, but noted that the species seemed primitive and posed no threat. Tez checked the follow-up records. There were none. The monitoring satellites had never been deployed. The standard containment protocols had never been implemented. Through what appeared to be a simple administrative oversight, humanity had been left alone to develop without hegemony interference, and now they had arrived, with ships that could outrun anything in the hegemony fleet. Tez's hands trembled as he copied the file. The empire that had stood unchallenged for 10,000 years had made a mistake, and that mistake might cost them everything. The stealth observation post hung in space like a dark star, invisible to hegemony sensors. Through its special windows, the massive purple planet of Zenthar Prime filled the view. The hegemony's capital world was home to over 20 billion aliens and the center of power for the entire empire. Captain Kim stood with her hands behind her back, watching the planet's swirling clouds. Next to her, Chief Engineer Bay worked at a control panel, analyzing the data they had gathered during their brief revelation to the hegemony forces. "They've definitely spotted us," Kim said, looking at the fleet of warships now patrolling the system. "Their entire defense network is on high alert." Bay nodded without looking up from his work. He was shorter than Kim, with round glasses and quick hands that never seemed to stop moving. While Kim had trained as a military leader, Bay was pure scientist, the genius behind the revolutionary jump drive that gave human ships their incredible speed. "Good," he said simply. "That was the plan, wasn't it? To let them know we exist. but not who we are or what we can do. Kim smiled. Phase 1 complete. For 20 years she had trained for this mission. The stakes could not be higher. The future of humanity depended on their success. After discovering the hegemony's existence through the crashed probe, Earth's nations had made a hard choice: stay hidden and develop in secret, or reveal themselves and likely be conquered like thousands of species before them. They chose the HFY or third option: prepare, then reveal themselves on their own terms. What's the status of the other teams? She asked. Bay tapped a few controls, and a holographic map appeared between them. Small blue dots representing human ships blinked across. Hegemony space. All teams report success, he said. Team 4 had a close call when a patrol spotted them near the weapons facility on Draylock, but they jumped out before they could be captured. And the data? It confirms everything our long-range scans told us. The hegemony's technology has barely advanced in the last 500 years. They've grown lazy, Captain. Complacent. Kim nodded. That was exactly what they had hoped for. An empire that had ruled unchallenged for too long had no reason to innovate. Meanwhile, humanity had been pushing the boundaries of science at a frantic pace, driven by the knowledge that they weren't alone in the universe. Send the signal to Admiral Choi, she ordered. Tell him we're ready for Phase 2. On Zenthar, Prime, Security Director Gal stood before the High Council again. This time the chamber was not just filled with council members, but with military commanders from across the Empire. Even the Emperor himself, a rarely seen figure who usually ruled through his council, sat on his high throne at the head of the room. Speak, the Emperor commanded. His voice was deep and cold. Gal swallowed hard. The news he carried might cost him his life, but it had to be delivered. Great Emperor, honored council members, we have confirmed that we are dealing with a previously unknown spacefaring species, he began. In the last 3 days, their vessels have been detected in over 100 locations throughout the Empire. He paused to let this sink in. 100 locations. It meant the aliens had thoroughly mapped hegemony space before revealing themselves. They appear to be gathering intelligence on our military capabilities, communication networks, and resource distribution systems. They show particular interest in our subject worlds. Military Commander Zol stepped forward. Unlike Gal, who preferred facts and analysis, Zol was a creature of action. We have mobilized the fleet, Emperor. 5,000 warships are now on high alert. If these aliens show themselves again, we will capture or destroy them. The Emperor's 6 eyes narrowed. Have we identified their homeworld? An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Zol looked at Gal, who reluctantly spoke. No, Emperor. Their ships appear using some kind of faster-than-light technology we don't understand, then disappear the same way. We cannot track them to their point of origin. The Emperor's voice grew even colder. So you're telling me that an unknown species with superior technology is freely moving through our space and we can do nothing about it? Before anyone could answer, the chamber doors burst open. Junior Archivist Tez rushed in, ignoring the guards who tried to stop him. In his hands he held an old data crystal. Forgive me, Emperor, he cried as guards grabbed his arms. But I have found something important. The Emperor raised a hand, stopping the guards from dragging Tez away. What is it, Archivist? Tez held up the crystal. I found records of a scout mission to a planet called Earth about 300 years ago. The species there, humans, were considered primitive, but showed potential. The scout recommended standard containment protocols, and, the Emperor prompted, the protocols were never implemented, Tez said, his voice shaking. Due to an administrative error, no follow-up mission was ever sent. The humans were left alone, unmonitored for 3 centuries. The council chamber erupted in shouting. The Emperor silenced them with a gesture. Are you suggesting these ships belong to these humans? He asked. The timing matches, Emperor. If they found technology from our scout ship, and if they've been developing without our interference, they could have advanced quickly. Security Director Gal stepped forward. The Archivist's theory makes sense. It would explain how a new, spacefaring species appeared without our knowledge. The Emperor stood towering over everyone in the room. Find this Earth, now. On the human colony world of New Jeju, Admiral Choi reviewed the reports from Captain Kim's team. Around him, the command center buzzed with activity as officers managed the operations of the 100 ships now probing hegemony defenses. "They're scrambling," said Colonel Lee, his second in command. "Our ships are running circles around their patrols. They still can't track us once we jump." Choi nodded, pleased but cautious. At 60, he was older than most active officers, with gray hair and a face marked by years of tension. He had been among the first to see the alien probe when it was found, and had dedicated his life to preparing Earth for this moment. "Don't get overconfident," he warned. "The hegemony has conquered thousands of worlds. They're not stupid, just slow to adapt. They will adjust their tactics eventually. By then it will be too late," Lee replied. "Phase 2 is already beginning." On the main screen, new signals appeared, not from human ships this time, but from planets throughout hegemony space. One by one, communication channels activated as human agents made contact with resistance groups on conquered worlds. These contacts had been years in the making. Using stealth ships, humans had visited dozens of subjugated worlds, learning their languages and finding those who still dreamed of freedom from imperial rule. "The Nexari have responded," an officer called. "Out. Their underground leaders are ready to meet with our envoys. The Drell resistance asks for confirmation of our weapons technology," said another. "The Voth mining colonies are reporting successful sabotage of hegemony supply lines." Choi allowed himself a small smile. This was humanity's true advantage, not just technology, but diplomacy. Where the hegemony conquered and ruled through fear, humans offered partnership and freedom. "Send the message to all teams," he ordered. "Operation Rising Tide is now active. Provide our allies with the promised technology packages and coordinate their resistance activities." Lee looked troubled. "Sir, once we do this, there's no going back. The hegemony will know this is a coordinated attack." "They already know something big is happening," Choi replied. "But they don't yet understand what they're facing. They think this is about ships and weapons." He gestured to the screen showing dozens of worlds now communicating with human vessels. "But this is about people, Colonel. People who have waited centuries for a chance to be free." As if to emphasize his point, a new message appeared on the screen. It came from Captain Kim's stealth post near Zenthar Prime. "Admiral," Kim's voice came through clearly. "We've intercepted their communications. They've figured out who we are. They're looking for Earth." Choi's expression hardened. "Then we need to move faster. Send the order to all ships. Begin Phase 3 immediately." The real war was about to begin. The mining planet of Taurus IV was a harsh world of dust and rocks. Massive quarries cut deep into its surface where thousands of alien workers toiled under the watchful eyes of hegemony guards. The native Taurians, tall, four-armed beings, with tough gray skin, had been conquered 300 years ago and forced to mine precious metals for their masters. Overseer Jack stood on his observation platform, watching the workers below with his 3 eyes. Something was wrong. Production had dropped by 12% in the last week, and he couldn't figure out why. The workers seemed different somehow, less afraid. "Double the guard patrols," he ordered his security chief, "and cut water rations until production returns to normal levels." "Yes, Overseer," the security chief replied. Neither of them noticed the small ship that landed that night, hidden in the mountains beyond the work camp's sensors. From the ship emerged Lieutenant Park, a human soldier diplomat, who had trained specifically for this mission. He wore a light combat suit that could deflect hegemony weapons and carried a pack filled with supplies. Most importantly, he carried hope. In a hidden cave 5 miles from the main camp, Park met with Rowe, the leader of the Taurian resistance. 20 Taurians sat in a circle, their large eyes watching the human with a mixture of doubt and hope. "You're smaller than I expected," Rowe said in his deep, rumbling voice. Park smiled. "Size isn't everything. My people have studied the hegemony for generations. We know their weaknesses." He opened his pack and took out several devices. These are communication units that cannot be tracked by hegemony sensors. And these, he said, placing several small weapons on the ground, can penetrate hegemony armor. The Taurians murmured among themselves. For centuries they had fought with simple tools against the hegemony's advanced weapons. They had never won. Why should we trust you? Ro asked. Why would your people help us? Because we face the same enemy, Park replied. The hegemony would have conquered Earth too if they hadn't forgotten about us. Now we're strong enough to fight, but we can't do it alone. No single species can defeat the Empire, but together we have a chance. Park activated a holographic display showing a map of nearby hegemony bases. In 2 days, human ships will attack these 3 supply depots. When they do, your people will have a chance to overwhelm the guards here at the main camp. We'll provide air support and evacuation for your civilians. Ro studied the map, then looked at his fellow resistance fighters. If we rise up and fail, the hegemony will kill thousands of our people in punishment. You won't fail, Park promised. Not this time. The hegemony has ruled through fear and isolation, keeping each conquered species separate, making each believe they are alone in their resistance. But that ends now. He expanded the holographic map to show the entire sector. Dozens of planets lit up in blue. All of these worlds are preparing to rise up, just like you. The hegemony can't stop us, all. Across the Empire, similar scenes played out as human emissaries made contact with resistance groups on hundreds of subjugated worlds. Species that had been enemies under hegemony rule now found themselves unlikely allies in a coordinated rebellion. On the desert world of Castan, winged beings called Avestri received weapons shipments from human transports. In the underwater cities of Morlis, the amphibious Nari sabotaged hegemony communication relays. On 50 mining worlds, production suddenly stopped as workers seized control of their facilities. And everywhere, the pattern was the same. The rebels used tactics and technology provided by humans, striking with a coordination that the hegemony had never faced before. On Zenthar Prime, the Emperor's war room was in chaos. The massive holographic display showing the Empire now had red warning symbols on hundreds of worlds. Simultaneous uprisings on 67 worlds in the outer sectors, reported Security Director Gal, his voice tense. Communications are down. In 12 sectors, we've lost contact with over 20% of our military bases. Military Commander Zol slammed his fist on the table. These humans, how are they coordinating attacks across such vast distances? It should be impossible. They're faster than light technology, Gal replied. They can travel between systems in hours, not weeks. They're sharing information and resources at a speed we cannot match. The Emperor had not spoken for hours. He sat on his command throne, watching the empire he had ruled for 2 centuries crumble before his eyes. Have we located their homeworld? He finally asked. Gal hesitated. We believe so, Emperor. Our deep space scanners have detected unusual activity in a previously unmonitored solar system about 30 light-years from the Orion sector. The 3rd planet shows signs of advanced civilization. Send the 7th Fleet, the Emperor ordered. I want this Earth turned to ash, Zol bowed. It will be done, Emperor. The fleet can depart within. An alarm blared, cutting him off. The holographic display zoomed in on the shipyards orbiting Zenthar Prime itself. We're under attack, Galley shouted. On the display they could see a dozen human ships that had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. They weren't attacking with weapons, however. Instead, they were broadcasting a message, sending it to every communication device in the Zenthar system. The message appeared on screens throughout the war room. It showed a human female in a military uniform. People of the hegemony, Admiral Choi said, her face calm but determined. I am Admiral Choi of the Earth Defense Fleet. For too long your empire has conquered and enslaved peaceful worlds. That ends today. The broadcast showed images of liberated worlds where former slaves now stood with human allies. We do not wish to destroy you, Choi continued. Unlike the hegemony, humans believe in freedom and self-determination for all sentient beings. We offer you a choice. Join us in building a new galactic community based on cooperation, not domination, or continue fighting a war you cannot win. The broadcast ended, but the damage was done. Throughout the capital, ordinary hegemony citizens watched with growing uncertainty. Many had never questioned the Empire's right to rule. Some had never even known that other species resisted their control. In the war room, the Emperor rose from his throne, his face twisted with rage. "Prepare the Void Hammer," he ordered. Zol and Gal exchanged alarmed looks. "Emperor," Gal said carefully, "the Void Hammer has never been tested on an inhabited world. The consequences—" "I don't care about consequences," the Emperor shouted. "I want these humans erased from existence. They dare to challenge us? To turn our subjects against us? They will learn what happens to those who defy the hegemony." Lieutenant Park stood with Ro on a hilltop, watching as Taurian rebels overwhelmed the mining camp below. The guards had been caught completely by surprise when their communication systems failed simultaneously. Now, for the first time in centuries, the Taurians were taking back their world. Park's communicator beeped. It was an emergency signal from Earth Command. "All field operatives, priority alert," came the message. "Hegemony is preparing to deploy superweapon designated Void Hammer against Earth. Operation Broken Sword is now active. Repeat, Operation Broken Sword is now active." Park's face grew serious. They had known this might happen. The hegemony, faced with defeat, would try to destroy Earth itself. "I have to go," he told Ro. "My homeworld is in danger." Ro placed one of his 4 hands on Park's shoulder. "Then go, friend. We will continue the fight here." As Park hurried back to his ship, he sent a confirmation signal to Earth Command. All across hegemony space, human operatives were doing the same, setting in motion the most daring phase of humanity's plan. The hegemony thought they were striking at the heart of the human resistance. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap years in the making. The Void Hammer facility hung in space like a metal moon. Built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, it was the hegemony's most secret weapon, a device that could destroy an entire planet with a single blast. For centuries, it had been the Empire's last resort, never used, but always ready. Now thousands of workers rushed to prepare it for its first real target, Earth. Overseer Lux watched from the main control room as power levels rose steadily on the monitors. His long, thin fingers tapped nervously on the console. The Emperor himself had given the order, but Lux had doubts. Using the Void Hammer would not just destroy a planet, it would cross a line the hegemony had never crossed before. "Power, at 60%, Overseer," reported a technician. "Targeting systems locked on the coordinates for Earth. Estimated time to full power, 3 hours. Lux nodded. "Continue the charging sequence, and double the security patrols. I want nothing to interfere with this operation." Little did he know, interference was already aboard the station. Deep in the maintenance tunnels that ran through the asteroid, Lieutenant Jun moved silently through the shadows. She was the leader of a small team of human special forces who had infiltrated the facility weeks ago, disguised as maintenance workers. They had been in place long before the order came to use the Void Hammer, patiently gathering intelligence and placing small devices at key points throughout the station. Jun checked her wrist computer. All team members were in position. "All units, Operation Broken Sword is now active," she whispered into her communicator. "Begin countdown. 60 minutes to detonation." Her team had planted special explosives near the Void Hammer's power core. When they went off, the weapon would not just be disabled, it would be destroyed completely. But first, they needed to get off the station. Admiral Choi stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Soul, watching as the massive fleet assembled around her. 100 of Earth's most powerful warships had gathered just outside the hegemony's sensor range, waiting for the signal to attack. "Status report," she ordered. Her second-in-command, Captain Min, stepped forward. "Lieutenant Jun's team has activated the countdown. The explosives will detonate in 55 minutes. All ships are in position for the attack run." Choi nodded. The plan was risky. They knew the hegemony was preparing to use the Void Hammer against Earth, but destroying it would expose their fleet to counterattack. It was a sacrifice they had to make. And what about the evacuation ships? she asked. All civilian transports have left Earth's solar system, Min replied. The colony worlds are prepared to receive them if we fail. Choi looked at the tactical display showing the massive hegemony facility ahead of them. Soon, they would reveal themselves and attack, drawing attention away from June's team so they could escape. Send the signal to all ships, she ordered. Operation Broken Sword Phase 2 begins now. On the Void Hammer station, Overseer Lux was startled by sudden alarms. What's happening? He demanded. Enemy ships approaching, shouted a controller. Dozens of them coming out of nowhere. The main screen showed a fleet of ships unlike any Lux had seen before. They were smaller than hegemony warships but moved with incredible speed and precision. It's the humans, Lux realized. They're trying to stop us. Launch all defensive fighters. Divert power to shields. But even as he gave the orders, he knew they might not be enough. The human ships were already firing, their weapons far more powerful than intelligence had suggested. Deep inside the station, Lieutenant June felt the first explosions as the battle began above. Her team needed to move faster now. Change of plans, she told her team. We need to get to the escape pods now. Our fleet has engaged the enemy earlier than expected. As they moved through the corridors, they encountered hegemony soldiers rushing to battle stations. June's team wore maintenance worker uniforms, but they wouldn't fool anyone who looked closely. Act normal, Jun whispered as they approached a security checkpoint. Remember your cover story. The guard at the checkpoint barely glanced at them. Maintenance workers, clear this section immediately. We're under attack. June nodded submissively, just as a real worker would. Yes, sir. We're heading to section BO-12 now. They passed through the checkpoint without incident, but Jun knew their luck wouldn't last. The station was on high alert, and soon someone would notice that not all maintenance workers were where they should be. 2 more sections to the escape pods, she told her team. Stay calm. In space around the station, the battle raged. Hegemony fighters swarmed out to meet the human fleet, but they were outmatched. Human ships moved with a speed and agility that made them nearly impossible to hit, while their weapons tore through hegemony shields with ease. On the bridge of the Soul, Admiral Choi watched the battle unfold. Our forward ships have breached their outer defenses, reported Captain Min, but we're taking heavy fire from the station's main guns. Choi studied the tactical display. The station's defenses were stronger than expected, and time was running out. Order Gold Squadron to target those main guns, she commanded. We need to give June's team more time. Admiral, Min said, his voice tense. We're detecting energy buildup in the station. They're preparing to fire the Void Hammer. Choi's face hardened. This wasn't supposed to happen. The weapon wasn't scheduled to be ready for hours. They're rushing the firing sequence, she realized. Contact Jun's team immediately. They need to detonate now. Inside the station, Jun's communicator beeped with the emergency signal. She checked the message and felt her blood run cold. They're accelerating the firing sequence, she told her team. We have less than 10 minutes before they can target Earth. One of her team members, Sergeant Song, looked grim. We'll never reach the escape pods in time. Jun made a quick decision. New plan. Song, you and Kim continue to the escape pods. The rest of us will head back to the power core and trigger the explosives manually. But Lieutenant, Song protested, that's a suicide mission. Jun nodded. Maybe, but we can't risk the Void Hammer firing at Earth. Millions of lives depend on us. She handed Song a data chip. Make sure this gets to Admiral Choi. It contains everything we learned about this facility. Song reluctantly took the chip, and he and Kim continued toward the escape pods. Jun and the remaining team members turned back, heading toward the heart of the station where the Void Hammer's power core hummed with deadly energy. They moved quickly, no longer concerned about remaining hidden. When hegemony guards appeared, June's team used their concealed weapons to fight their way through. Finally, they reached the massive chamber housing the power core, a towering pillar of pulsing energy that stretched from floor to ceiling. Set the detonators for immediate explosion, June ordered. We don't have time for a countdown anymore. As her team worked, the door to the chamber burst open. Overseer Lux stood there with a squad of elite guards. Stop them, he shouted. They're trying to sabotage the Void Hammer. June and her team took cover behind equipment as energy blasts filled the air. They returned fire, but they were outnumbered. One by one, June's team members fell. Soon, only she remained, crouched behind a power conduit with the detonator control in her hand. She was wounded, her left arm burned by an energy blast, but her right hand still worked. She looked at the small device that would trigger the explosives, then at the advancing guards. Overseer Lux stepped forward, his weapon aimed at her heart. "Surrender, human. You've lost." June smiled. "No, you've lost. Your empire was doomed the moment you forgot about Earth." She pressed the button. Admiral Choi watched as a blinding flash erupted from the Void Hammer station. The explosion was massive, tearing the artificial moon apart from within. "Lieutenant June's team has succeeded," Captain Min reported quietly. "The Void Hammer is destroyed." Around them, the hegemony forces fell into disarray as their command center vanished in the explosion. Without central coordination, their formations broke apart, making them easy targets for the human fleet. Choi bowed her head briefly, honoring June's sacrifice. Then she turned to her officers. "Send the signal to all ships," she ordered. "Phase 3 begins now. We take the fight directly to Zenthar Prime." The human fleet regrouped and jumped away, leaving behind the floating debris of what had been the hegemony's ultimate weapon. The Empire had just lost not only its planet killer, but also a quarter of its defense fleet, and the war was far from over. The Imperial Palace on Zenthar Prime was built to last forever. Its massive stone walls had stood for 10,000 years, and its halls had seen 100 emperors come and go. It was designed to be impenetrable, the ultimate symbol of hegemony, power. No enemy had ever set foot inside, until today. Captain Kim moved silently through the grand corridor leading to the council chamber. With her were 5 members of her special operations team, all wearing light combat suits that helped them blend into the shadows. They had not come with a large army. They had not blasted their way in with heavy weapons. Instead, they had used something the hegemony never expected: stealth and surprise. While Admiral Choi's fleet engaged the hegemony forces in orbit around Zenthar Prime in what looked like a frontal assault, Kim's small team had slipped through the chaos in a single unmarked shuttle. Using landing codes stolen months earlier by intelligence agents, they had set down in a minor spaceport, then made their way to the palace through maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the capital city. Now they stood before the massive gold doors of the council chamber, where the Emperor and his highest officials were meeting to coordinate their defense against the human fleet. "Are you sure this is right?" asked Sergeant Yoon, the youngest member of the team. "6 of us against the entire hegemony leadership?" Kim nodded. "Sometimes the smallest blade makes the deepest cut." She checked her wrist computer. "Everyone. Ready? Remember, non-lethal force if possible. We're not here for revenge." Her team nodded. They carried special weapons designed to stun rather than kill. Their mission wasn't to start a massacre, but to end a war. "Now," Kim ordered. They placed small devices on the doors, not explosives, but advanced electronic disruptors that interfered with the locking mechanisms. The massive doors slid open silently. Inside, the Hegemony High Council was in session. The Emperor sat on his raised throne, with 12 council members at a long table below him. Military commanders and advisors stood around the room, all focused, on a large holographic display showing the battle in orbit. No one noticed the 6 humans enter until they were already inside and the doors closed behind them. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded the Emperor when he finally saw them. "Guards." But the palace guards were slow to react, confused by the small number of intruders and their calm demeanor. Kim stepped forward, removing her helmet to show her face. "I am Captain Kim of Earth," she announced, her voice clear and strong. "I've come to discuss the terms of your surrender." The room erupted in shouts of outrage. Military Commander Zol drew his weapon, but Kim was faster. She fired her stun weapon and Zol collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive. The room fell silent. "The next person who reaches for a weapon will meet the same fate," Kim said calmly. "I suggest you all listen to what I have to say." The Emperor's face twisted with anger. You dare to come here, to the heart of our empire? You must be mad. Not mad, Kim replied, just confident. At this moment, human fleets have engaged your forces in 26 systems. The Void Hammer has been destroyed. Your communication network has been compromised, and most importantly, over 400 of your subject worlds are in open rebellion. She walked to the holographic display and activated a data chip. The image changed, showing not just the battle in orbit, but conflicts across the entire empire. Everywhere, hegemony forces were in retreat. You've already lost, Kim told them. You just don't know it yet. Security Director Gal stepped forward cautiously, his hands open to show he was unarmed. If what you say is true, he said, why come here? Why not simply destroy us from orbit? Because that's not who we are, Kim answered. Humans don't seek to replace one empire with another. We don't want to destroy you, we want to change you. She placed another data chip on the council table. A new hologram appeared showing a document written in both human and hegemony languages. This is our proposal for peace, Kim explained. A new galactic federation where all spacefaring species, including yours, would have equal representation. No masters, no slaves, just partners. The council members looked at the document with disbelief. After 10,000 years of absolute rule, the idea of equality with their former subjects seemed impossible. This is absurd, the Emperor declared. We will never agree to this. Many of your people already have, Kim replied. She activated another display showing hegemony worlds where local officials had surrendered to human-led coalition forces without a fight. Your empire is falling apart, Emperor, but your civilization doesn't have to fall with it. You have a choice. Before the Emperor could respond, an alarm sounded. On the main display, they could see Admiral Choi's flagship breaking through the last line of hegemony defenses. You're out of time, Kim said. Decide now. Peace on our terms, or... She let the sentence hang unfinished. The implication was clear. The Emperor stood, his tall figure imposing even in defeat. For a long moment he stared at Kim, his 6 eyes unblinking. Then slowly he looked around the room at his advisors and council members. Leave us, he ordered them. I will speak with the human alone. The council members hesitated, but obeyed. Kim signaled her team to let them pass but remain alert. When the room was empty except for Kim, her team, and the Emperor, he stepped down from his throne and approached her. I have ruled for 2 centuries, he said quietly. I have conquered worlds and crushed rebellions. I have executed those who defied me and rewarded those who served me. Never did I imagine I would face this choice. History is full of unexpected turns, Kim replied. The hegemony forgot about Earth, and that single oversight has changed everything. The Emperor nodded slowly. Perhaps it was inevitable. No empire lasts forever. He looked at the peace proposal again. This federation of yours, how would it work? Each world would govern itself, Kim explained. Representatives would meet to address matters that affect all. Decisions would be made by consensus, not by force. And what would become of me? Of my people? Your people would keep their homeworld and colonies. They would have the same rights as all other species. As for you, Kim paused. That depends on you. You could stand trial for crimes against other worlds, or you could help build something new. The Emperor was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, I am too old to change. But perhaps the hegemony is not. I will sign your treaty, Captain Kim. Not because I believe in your federation, but because I believe in survival. 1 year later, representatives from 100 formerly enslaved worlds gathered on neutral territory, a space station built specifically for the first Galactic Federation Council. Captain Kim, now Ambassador Kim, watched as they took their seats in the great circular chamber. Near the back sat a delegation from the former hegemony, now called the Zenthar Republic. The Emperor had indeed faced trial and had been imprisoned for his crimes. But many of his people, especially the younger generation, had embraced the chance for a new beginning. Admiral Choi, standing beside Kim, observed the assembly with satisfaction. When That first hegemony officer saw our ship and said, "That ship's not logged, and it's gaining speed." "Do you think he had any idea what would happen?" she asked. Kim smiled. "I doubt it. One small ship changed the course of galactic history. Not the ship," Choi corrected her. "What it represented: freedom, innovation, cooperation, things the hegemony had forgotten were important." As the council session began, the first speaker was Ro, the Tarian who had led his people's resistance. His forearms raised in a traditional greeting as he addressed the assembly. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," he said. "For millennia, the galaxy knew only conquest and subjugation. Now we build something different, a community of equals, founded on mutual respect and cooperation." Kim listened, remembering how it all began. A crashed alien probe, Earth's nations setting aside their differences, the long secret years of preparation, the risks they had taken. It had been worth it. The last item of business for the day was to adopt the Federation Charter. The document began with words that the former hegemony delegates still found strange, but that humans had believed in for centuries. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all sentient beings are created equal." As the charter was approved by unanimous vote, Kim felt a sense of pride unlike anything she had experienced before. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as liberators, not through superior firepower, but through superior ideals. And all because years ago, a hegemony officer had looked at his screen and said, "That ship's not logged, and it's gaining speed, the end."